Hey everybody, this is Haiku coming at you with my first experimental dive into World of Warships commentary. A couple things to start. I am not a community contributor for World of Warships. So anything I say related to the game, it's my opinion alone. I'm not giving gameplay advice. Don't listen to this podcast thinking I'm going to give you a strategy edge. You will end up sucking hard in game as a result. Let's see what else. I'm a pretty average player at best. So much so, if WoWs knew I was recording and posting game-related content, they would probably ban my account out of embarrassment for the game and myself. Now, next thing. Oh, most important. Listening to this podcast requires a 2-drink minimum on your part. I don't care what you drink, as long as you are drinking while listening. Actually, while I'm recording, I'm enjoying a glass of a really terrible boxed wine, Shiraz, but it is getting the job done. Let's see here. Finally, oh yeah, shout out to my subscribers, all 6 of you. I know the only reason you subscribed is that anybody else actually good already has thousands of subscribers, and they don't care if you subscribe. But I do, and I appreciate you. Even someday when I have 100,000 subscribers and I never answer your comments. But for now, you're golden. So anyways, that's the end of the scripted part of the commentary. Now we're just going to dive into just, I don't know, random stream of conscious thought here. Something that, I think about when I'm watching all these YouTube replays. What does it mean to be a good player? I think everybody probably has a different definition or a different opinion on what makes you a good player. I know the first 6 months that I played World of Warships, I don't even think I messed around with like captain skills or putting signals and stuff on ships before matches. That first 6 months I was just trying to figure out gameplay and trying not to be the first person who was dying in a match. And what happens is that you spend enough time in the game up front just kind of like trying to figure it all out, and you don't really realize that all this stuff you've been doing in game up to point is being logged and stats are being generated for you. And I'm not talking about when you go on your profile on the WoWs website and it shows you your win percentage and your average XP per game. That's all like really basic information. I think it was like 6-9 months, maybe a year into the game where I discovered the World of Warships stats website, where you can go in, you can punch your name, and you can pull up like a lot of detailed statistical information about your gameplay. And I was looking at all this stuff, win percentages, personal rating, trends as far as like how my experience is going either up or down, and I could look at individual ships and see how I was doing in them, and more importantly, I could go in and I could see how I was doing compared to other players. And really what I realized is, man, I really suck at this game. With surface ships, I was really struggling to even be a statistically average player, when compared against the whole pool. And man, that was really depressing at first. But and then you realize that, okay, so my stats say I'm really not a good player because my win percentage is low, or my game average with a particular ship maybe is 5,000 damage less than what the average is for the overall population. and you buckle down and you start concentrating and you start watching YouTube videos, seeing how other people play, with the hopes that you can improve your own gameplay. And you can, but the problem is you've already got like 6, 9 months, a year or more of data in the statistics database, and because you played poorly, over that period of time, even if you actually do improve your gameplay, it's not going to get reflected, because it's kind of like when you're in school and your first 2 years in college you do really crappy and you have a low GPA. You spend that next 2 years trying to just bring your GPA up by fractions of a point, because there's already this bulk of data that you're working against. So you have to start thinking about other ways to measure your performance in game, and you know what you can do to really be a better player. And for me, things started really turning around at the start of this past year with the rework of the carriers. Up until that point, the first 3 years of World of Warships, I had always played surface ships. I had toyed around with the Hosho, the carrier, in co-op play a couple times. I didn't have a really good feel for that RTS type play, and even though I wasn't a great player or anything in game up until the before the rework, having a carrier on your team and having someone who knows what they're doing was like the difference between winning and losing a match. Like, the carriers could just absolutely dominate the entire map and either make it or break it. So I always kind of felt that I don't want to mess around with this ship, because the expectation, I think, for all the players is when they go into a match and they see that they're carriers, these guys know what they're doing, and I got to do everything I can to support them, because if they survive and if they're good, we're just going to destroy the other team. And for me, that would have been too much pressure going into random matches. Not really having a mastery for like that RTS, interface, and being able to carry a team, or being that guy who could just dominate so that the rest of the team could move forward, capture, destroy and win. So I stayed away from them. And when the rework came out and I heard about how the gameplay changed, I was really interested. And I was interested because years ago, before I found World of Warships, and I'll talk about that maybe in another commentary match or replay if this one goes over well. Years before I got involved with World of Warships, there was a game that I was playing called I think it's Pacific Storm, and it was a naval simulator, and there was a RTS element to it, but you could also set up battles, and you could fight ships, and mostly you were flying planes, and I liked flying planes. And this is going back, I'm 51, so I go way back with aviation simulators and stuff. And I really liked with Pacific Storm that I could control a flight of planes on the battlefield, and I could hop into individual planes and I could drop bombs and rockets, and to me that was a really great game. And kind of it's an interesting side note that the company that made that game, Pacific Storm, I think it's Lesta Studios. It's in my channel. There's I have a short discussion of that. But that Lesta Studios was a Russian company, and in fact now they're actually part of World of Warships, that empire. So I suspect very strongly that with the rework, they really leaned on that team of programmers to bring that type of aviation play into World of Warships. So when the rework happened, I jumped into carriers, and to me it was it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was way more fun than being in a ship and kind of crawling around the map and getting your butt kicked. And the other thing that with what I found out is with a little work in the training room, I was pretty decent with carriers. Um, I had a knack for it. I had somewhat of a good intuition in playing them, and since the rework, I have only played aircraft carriers. And I mean, I have got like 67 ships and everything, and I mean, I put a lot of time into World of Warships on the surface ships, and with these carriers, to me, it's just so much fun. It's so satisfying, and it's so interesting that I don't even bother playing the surface ships anymore. The only time I take them out is, like, for example, with the change in the priority AA sector stuff. I did pull out a couple ships into a training room just so I could see how that mechanic worked and how it might actually affect my play as the aircraft carrier flying planes. So, anyways, that's kind of like getting off the topic. But even though my play is much better now, still, if you would go to look at my stats, that's 03 haiku. You would see that my numbers don't look great, and like I said, that's because I've got like 3 years of data playing ships that I wasn't really good at, so it kind of like drags your performance down. Now, the one thing about the World Warship Stat website is that you can look at like last 5, 7, 21 days performance. So that's actually a better snapshot, right? If you play baseball, you've got cumulative stats that follow you for your whole career, but then each season has, it's a new set of stats. And so at least with the World of Warship Stats website, at least you can go back a certain number of days so you can see how you're trending and, how you're playing currently, as opposed to like what your, lifetime stats suggest and say about you. So anyways, so probably the one universal measure for, whether or not you're a good player is, it's either your average XP or from the World of Warships website, or it's your personal rating from the stats website. And the personal rating is probably, well, it probably doesn't matter, because in game, the base XP that you earn, I mean, it's all taken into account, like the damage you do, but also, did you cap? Did you spot? Did you cause floods? Did you cause fires? It takes all that stuff into consideration. So, probably your average experience or, your personal rating going back like the last 21 or 30 days or whatever is probably the ultimate measure of how you are as a player. And you can compare your personal rating to like the lifetime number of people who've played World of Warships. I don't know if that's really helpful. I think one metric that World of Warships doesn't capture is how often you're on top of the leaderboard in a match, whether you won or lost, and how many times you finish in the top 3 or top 5 of your team. Regardless of whether your team won or lost. I kind of feel like if you're consistently placing in the top 5, compared to the rest of your team, you're working hard and you're contributing. And it's kind of a shame that that's not a stat that they track, where you could go in and see over the lifetime of, I've played 1,000 matches, and I've had 500 matches where I finished in the top 5. I think that says something. So, but they're just numbers, and the thing about numbers is they don't really always reflect the game intent, your intent as a player. You can be a player who you just go out, you treat it like a team deathmatch, and all you're doing is you're out there to farm damage and XP, regardless of what the rest of your team does. And, if you're a strong player with a battleship, you can put up matches where you're doing 300,000 damage, and that reflects well on you personally, but, I don't know that that actually makes you a good player. Because oftentimes I'll be in a match and I'll be in a position where, I can execute, I've got a battleship out in the open, he's perpendicular to me, he's not maneuvering, and I'm in a position where, I'm just moments away from being able to lay in a spread of torpedoes into the sky and maybe even put them down. And then all of a sudden, at the last minute, you get a team, message, someone needs help, or, they want fire directed against another ship. And, I have to say that I'm the kind of player that, in that moment, even though it's not, advantageous to me personally, at the end of the day, it's about the team win. And, I'll break off that attack and I'll go and assist and stuff. And, when you do that, not only do you put yourself in a position where, maybe you don't, maybe you miss that opportunity to do some serious damage on a ship, but, you could also be putting yourself in a position of vulnerability, and actually hurt your own personal game. And, there's just no way to really capture that in your statistics. It's just something that you do, and you feel good about it because it was probably the right thing to do. Even though it wasn't maybe the right thing for you personally. I think in my book, that's what makes a player a good or even a great player. It's that person who's able to set aside their own personal self-interests, and look out for the interests of the group. So, I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's kind of, I think, in the years now that I've been playing, that's kind of like the conclusion I've come to. And this as an aside, I really want to get that enemy Lexington. I haven't watched this replay, I think, since I first recorded it. So I remember, there's that Nagato. And I think I decided, okay, I'm going to make a run on this guy, and then I'm going to load up with torps. And then I'm going to see if I can find that Lexington. Because at this point, we're winning. It looks like the match is in the bag. They're not anywhere near our base. So at this point, I kind of feel like I had the freedom if I want to just go off on my own and take a shot at that Lexington, because I really want to finish this match over 100,000. And I've got, see, what do I have over here? I have that New Mexico and that Fuso. They should be able to take care of that Nagato. Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I remembered it. Oh, wait a minute, there's another ship too. Okay, so the Nagato's gone. And now there's that Akazuki. Yeah, I'm not going to mess around with him because he's sitting in a smoke screen. But we're running out of time. So I can't remember if I actually got this guy or not. But anyways, so that's kind of it for today. My first podcast. Hope you enjoyed listening. All 6 of you, maybe. Go ahead and post in the comments. Give me your thoughts on what you think makes a player good, because I'd be interested to know. You've got the notable guy, the guy that I like to follow and whose videos I like to watch, Top Tier. He plays almost all carriers. And he has a very different attitude on gameplay. He treats it like team deathmatch, and he plays a specific way in the hopes of dragging out a match as long as possible so that he can do the most damage. And I respect that. It's not how I play, and he puts up really good numbers, so you kind of got to expect it. And I suspect with him that even though he's damage farming for his own benefit, just the amount of damage he does on a match, it helps his team regardless. So, anyways, leave me your comments, and hope you enjoyed, and talk to you hopefully in the future. Take care.